In the spring of 1373, an English woman was confined to her sickbed, battling the plague and facing what she thought would be her own death. Much of her life is a mystery. We do not know if she were single or married, but if she'd ever been married before that fateful illness, then both her husband and perhaps her children died in the plague. We know that she did not die, but that she recovered by early May. Her birth name is unknown, but her adopted name, Julian of Norwich, has come down to us, and she is remembered as one of the greatest English mystics of all time. In her long-ago fevered haze, she suddenly saw Jesus bleeding in front of her. In total, Julian saw a series of 16 visions, which she wrote down in a book entitled 16 Revelations of Divine Love. This is the first known English language book written by a woman. As word of her visions spread, she became known throughout the land as a spiritual authority, and many traveled to Norwich to seek her spiritual counsel and insight. Julian's overarching message was one of hope and trust in an all-gracious God whose compassionate and steadfast love never wavers. In this all-gracious God, there can be no element of wrath. According to Julian, wrath, all that is contrary to peace and love, resides in us, in our hearts, and not in God. God's saving work in Jesus of Nazareth and in the gift of God's Spirit is to slake our wrath and the power of God's merciful and compassionate love. Julian did not perceive God as blaming us or judging us, but as enfolding us in love. Time and again, Julian's message is clear. We should run to God as a frightened child runs to its mother. The eighth revelation, the heart of the book, concerns the passion and the cross, focusing on Jesus' pain and suffering. Is there any pain like this, Julian asked? Of all pains that lead to salvation, this is the most pain, to see thy love suffer. How might any pain be more to me than to see him that is all my life, all my bliss, and all my joy suffer? Julian marvels at how much Jesus' mother Mary must have suffered to see him on the cross, and how in turn Jesus suffered because his mother was suffering. For Julian, all who contemplate the cross and Jesus' death suffer. She writes, all his disciples and all his true lovers also suffer pain at his death. In this community of pain forged through the suffering of Jesus, Julian sets forth one of her great theological insights. Here I saw a great one-ing betwixt Christ and us. And if you're not familiar with that word, here it is, one-ing. Here I saw a great one-ing betwixt Christ and us, for when he was in pain, we were in pain. To Julian, the cross was about one-ing, the complete unity of God with us and us with God. And not only us as humans, but as she relates from the vision, the one-ing of all creatures that suffer pain, suffer with him. And the firmament, the earth, filled in sorrow, all that God has made, all the planets, all the elements, even the stars despaired as Jesus was dying. In expounding upon this idea of one-ing, Julian moves beyond the idea of Jesus suffering for us to Jesus entering our condition and suffering with us. As Diana Butler Bass has noted, and I'm indebted to her for much of what follows, there is a huge difference between for and with. For is a preposition of distance, a word that indicates exchange or favor. It implies function or purpose. I do something for you, you do something for me. Notice, someone does something on behalf of or in another's place. For is a contract. Jesus suffered for us means that Jesus did something on our behalf. He acted on behalf of a purpose in place of someone else. But 4 always separates the actor and the recipient, distancing a sacrificial Jesus from those for whom he died. At the cross, Jesus is the subject. We are the objects. By way of contrast, with is a preposition of relationship, implying an accompaniment or moving in the same direction. Rather than something done for you, with makes you a participant in the action or transaction. With is the preposition of sympathy, of empathy, of being on the same side, of close association. No, you don't need to go for me, I'll go with you. With is about joining in, being together. When we come to the cross on Good Friday, it is fairly easy for us to understand Jesus dying for us. We understand the exchange. God died for us, and so we get baptized or confirmed and serve the church. Jesus sacrificed his life so that we might go to heaven instead of hell. We can wrap our heads around 4. We see evidence of 4 every day. We know that people die for causes. Some of you comprehend more fully than others of us the sacrifices that our military members make in the name of freedom and safety. Intellectually, we understand that people sacrifice and die for others. Since February, we have seen this in almost every news event that has come to us from the Ukraine. We respond by praying for those who make sacrifices for others. Sometimes we thank them for their service. Sometimes we donate to causes that support the sacrifices of others. And yet, at the end of the day, there is still a huge difference between how we understand someone sacrificing or suffering for us and someone suffering with us. Again, to quote Diana Butler-Bass, we have a harder time understanding and saying yes to being one with Jesus and his suffering. We are better at contracts than we are at relationships. With asks more of us. With invites us to invest into relationships. Perhaps on this Good Friday at the cross, we're invited not just to know that Jesus suffered for us. Perhaps we are being invited to suffer with Jesus. If that is the invitation, then at the foot of the cross, we suffer with those women who refused to abandon Jesus and who entered into his pain, who followed him even to the grave when all of the others fled. We suffer with Jesus on the cross, allowing our hearts to break open for all the brokenness of the world. If we say yes to this shared suffering, this wanting that Jillian describes, then our compassion will expand, enabling us both to be with those who are hurting and to hurt as others hurt. This shared suffering will empower us to stand up to evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms they present themselves, and urge us to dare to dream of a world where justice rolls down like waters, where forgiveness is not just a nice idea but a practice, and where self-sacrificial love points others to God. As we wait for that day when God shall wipe every tear from our eyes, we get to choose how we will live. Will we be agents of reconciliation, justice, hope, mercy, peace, and love? Will we suffer with Jesus and with others? Jesus leaves the decision.